All right. Now, first, I want to apologize for that. I guess my internet just went out for my computer real quick. I can say I'm not really happy to see that I went from 50 people watching down to six now. But I hope you guys all come back. I'm glad that you guys were here. I'm sorry that happened. I just started clocking on my screen. It just started clocking. Couldn't connect, and it I looked to see trying to find what happened. Then of course once that was done, I had to start an entire new stream, which my OCD is not going to like starting the new stream just because I had all that stuff connected there before. So but don't worry, I'll make it up. I'll read some more stories. I will finish the story. Let some more people get back into the room before I do that. But yeah, it's just started clocking, and then once it started clocking, we had to figure out what was going on. For some reason, the internet was just not getting to my computer. So I had to correct that. Once I corrected that, I had to go in and see if I could restart the stream, but of course you can't do that, I guess. Or if you can do it, I don't know how. I'm not Scotty from Star Trek. Although I was giving it all she's got. No, kidding. But anyhow, I fixed whatever was happening. It's back, and then I had to start a new stream. So here we are again with the blinking eyes and everything. And I'll wait for some more people to get back in the room. If they're going to come back, hopefully they will. And finish up that story. But I'll tell a couple more stories too. But, Oki, welcome back. Chimera Cat. It's Lily. When my cat died, I was very upset about it. I thought it was a dream, but it wasn't. About a month after my beloved cat died, I got up to a drink from the garage. It was about 2 a.m. Oh, when I passed the kitchen, I saw a shadow. Keep in mind it was Home Alone. That's kind of scary. I'm back, and it looks like we're getting some people back in here, too, so that's good. But, so, at least we got to the part where you guys realized that I was, when I first got the story, I was kind of, like, skeptical about it. It was, don't get me wrong. I find it very, very plausible that a creepy guy would dress up in a dog suit and go around trying to do whatever horrible things he wanted to do with the little girl. I mean, maybe he just had a psychiatric disorder, and maybe he really just wanted to be a dog. Um, so I have no doubt that there are people like that, but this is where the disbelief came in for me in the story. It wasn't that somebody was doing that. It was that, oh yeah, and listen to Evil Black Cat there. I don't have anything against furries. I know quite a few furries. Uh, I don't really assume. I don't think of the story and think of that guy as a furry for one major reason, because because of the interaction with the little girl. Um, furries, any furries that I've known would not cross that line. So if you guys are furries, no furries, no problem with them. It was the fact that a man that was that old obviously has no business playing around with a 5-year-old girl in her backyard. But the reason I found the story hard to believe when I was submitted to me was that something like that could have been going on for so long without the mom knowing about it. I mean, it basically went on for about a week, and I was just like, I don't think so. I don't think that. I mean, that would be the mom is the one who's telling the story. So basically, she's telling a story that she let this go on without. She wasn't watching her daughter, because think of the time it would take. The dog obviously had to climb over the fence, interact with the girl with her actually believing he was a dog. and then he would eventually play with her and then climb over the fence and leave. It just seems very odd to me that the mother would take her a week before she would notice what was going on. And she only noticed it because he was barking. So yeah, it's when I got the story, that was what made it hard to believe for me. But I will finish it up. Looks like I have to find it again. Yeah, it was on the internet. I was reading it directly from the email that I got, so obviously that went out too. So let's find where we were. 3 stories about children and their parents. Okay, guy looked like a stray. It was a ratty costume, and it actually made him look like he was a stray. He was on all fours, but it was easy to tell he was a man. My daughter was throwing him a ball. While he was bringing it back to her, the man saw me standing on the back porch, horrified. "Get the hell away from my daughter, you freak!" I yelled at the man. The man immediately jumped up onto his back feet and dropped the ball. With amazing dexterity, he ran off to the fence and jumped on, pulling himself quickly up and over the top of it. "Don't go, doggy!" My daughter cried as the man. I can't read that without laughing. "Don't go, doggy!" My daughter cried as the man ran off. He was quickly gone before I could do anything about it, though. I called the police, but there was little they could do. Other than the fact that he was wearing a dog suit, I couldn't give the police a description of the man. My husband was livid, but we were helpless. The police just told us we should be happy that I discovered what was going on before the man either kidnapped or injured my daughter. Well, needless to mention, they were all right. 2 things came out of this experience. My daughter no longer played in the backyard, and she finally got her real doggy, a beautiful German Shepherd, which won't let any other fake dogs into its backyard. As far as my allergies go, I'll deal with it to keep my daughter protected. So there we go with that. End of the story. But yeah, you know what I mean. It's just, I'm not saying it couldn't happen. I don't like to say much things couldn't happen, but that one kind of got me just a little bit. It's strange because I never thought that stuff was real, like paranormal ghost stuff. Well, I mean, here's the funny thing about it. I don't know. I'm hoping evil Black Cat might shed some light on her thoughts about this, because I was a real strong believer in the supernatural. And I wasn't always sure if she believed in it as much as I did, or she was humoring me. She could tell us what she thinks. I always kind of thought she was humoring me because, I turned into a skeptic after a while, and she almost seemed, she was around being a skeptic around the same time. I don't think she was copying me, of course, but it almost makes me think that maybe she was more skeptical than I was in the beginning. I mean, I was all into paranormal stuff. I would watch documentaries about ghosts and stuff like that. You know what ruined it for me? Ghost hunting shows. Ghost hunting shows, their idea was to create, go out and try to get evidence that ghosts exist. Try to get evidence that places are haunted. But it's actually the very fact that they never get anything. And, I mean, it's always weird. And you know what really gets me about ghost hunting shows? These people go out and they hunt for ghosts. And when something happens and they think there's a ghost there, they get scared and run off. You're trying to get evidence that ghosts exist. You're going somewhere hoping to see if this place is haunted. I'm hoping to see a ghost. I want to see a ghost. Oh my God, there's a noise, run! It's just, it baffles me. And whenever I tell people this, so it's like, Well, they got to do that for the the suspense and the action of the show. No, they're supposed to be trying to get evidence that ghosts exist. I mean, if you're hunting for ghosts, if you're scared of ghosts, if a ghost scares you, why are you out hunting for it? Now, I've done some ghost hunting stuff in the past, but yeah, actually, Sarah Lee just said, didn't you do some kind of ghost investigation or just a tour of an old asylum? Yes. When I went to Waverly Hills Sanitarium in Louisville, Kentucky. This was in 2016. My friend Rebecca took me there for my birthday, and she got me a nice big steak right beforehand. That was great. But I went in expecting some spooky ghost stuff to happen. That was around the time I was switching from being more skeptical, or to being more skeptical, and that ghost hunt had a lot to do with it because there were a few things that happened there, and one thing that really irritated me quite a bit. It wasn't the live stream. No, we didn't live stream there. Maybe we will because I do want to go back if they're going to be open. If the COVID stuff is at allows us to, I would love to go again next year. Maybe do a live stream. But no, this was just recordings I did with my telephone, and the there was something very interesting that I noticed. The one of the people, and I'm not accusing anybody of anything. I'm just telling you what I noticed. One of the things you did when you went into the hey, there's Brad Smith. Brad, that is very, very interesting. I haven't talked to Brad in a while. Brad was the other person, the third person. Me, Rebecca, and Brad were the ones, and he comes in right when we're talking about Waverly Hills. It's great to see you, Brad. And great to see you when it's like, ooh, that's spooky. You're coming in when I'm talking about us. Of course, Brad was the most skeptical at the time. Rebecca was the one that would most believe it. Oh yeah, I will plan on it. If I can come. I really would like to go to Waverly Hills. I haven't checked to see if they're still doing tours right now, but if they are, it wouldn't be until maybe around my birthday again. But I'd love to go back there and do another video. But to add to what I'm saying though, um, we were there. I think we paid for like 8 hours or to be there for like 8 hours, and about an hour into it, I was sort of annoyed. But I noticed something that there was a book that you sign in on, and this one of the tour guide people had this little thing that she carried around that words would pop up on it. And like, when she was standing around, she would claim that ghosts were saying the words and they'd pop up on this little device. Well, she was holding it around Rebecca, and the name Rebecca came up. When she on it, and Rebecca, of course, we were talking about that was interesting. I didn't put my real name in the ledger. I put a fake name in the ledger. And when the person came to me, that fake name came up. And that led me to believe that they were not there weren't ghosts there picking up on us and saying our names, that somebody was reading the ledger and sent the names through the device. Because why would it come up with a fake name that you signed in it? And that was about an hour into it. And yeah, we were getting bored. It was like, yeah, let's leave now. But it was fun though. Did I call them out? No. I didn't call them out on it. I think me and Brad talked about it. I didn't mention it to Rebecca at the time because she was having an interesting time. But here's another thing. This is funny. I'm gonna tell you guys this, and hopefully, Brad, if I'm able to come back, we'll just go for a shorter amount of time because you don't need to be there for 8 hours. But here's something that really gets me. Now, it has to do with the time period. There was a guy there that had one of those, what do you call them, sound boxes or something, where you play them and it's all that static and you're supposed to try to hear ghosts through it. And they had this big circle. Everyone was laying down, and they were trying to contact children that had died in the hospital. And the person that was doing this, I know if Brad remembers this because he didn't join the circle. Rebecca and I did, but they were trying to they're trying to contact the spirits of these dead children by spirit box, yes, by singing "Ring Around the Rosies." And you know, I'm just sitting there giggling, and I'm not giggling because what they're trying to do. I mean, if you're trying to contact ghosts, that's completely fine. But a little bit of history would have really, really, really. I'm laughing about the history because if I believe this is correct, the children who died there died like in the 1930s. I mean, later in its existence, it was only like adults that were there, but there was a lot of children who died. I think it was the 30s or something. And here's the thing. Here's the thing. This is why I was laughing and giggling. Ring Around the Rosies was not well known in the United States at that period of time. It didn't get really known here as well until like the 60s. And that is actually true. Some people have known it, but it wasn't popular around here. So it was very unlikely that some children who died in a sanitarium in the 1930s or 40s would have had any recognition of that song. And it's just like, that's why I was giggling. And so finally, when they were doing it, I said, guys, this is nothing against you. I can't, I'm just going to go walk away. I told you guys, I'm a skeptic, so I might be giving you guys some bad energy, so I'm going to go. And that's all I did. And then I went right over to Brad, and I said, and I think if I'm not mistaken, I mentioned the Ring Around the Rosies thing to him. And we just went off and did other stuff. There was nothing that happened there. I mean, like I said, like we were there for 6 hours. Um, no, there was something that happened, but it was psychosomatic. I felt something kind of hit me, and I fell into another room. But it was more, I think, at that point, wanting to create something to happen because it was nothing happened. But we had fun. I turned it into a big joke afterwards. If you watch the video, don't expect to see anything like that like scary. Just me being silly and making dorky jokes about the graffiti. It's like, the most important thing, Tommy sucks dick or something like that. That was probably the funniest, best part of the entire video. Um, but yeah, we turned it into a joke. And it's just you putting up with me. If you watch that video, you will learn one thing: what it's like to hang out with me, because that's exactly like I am. I'm just constantly uh, saying silly jokes and stuff like that. And yeah, it was fun. It was really fun. It was a blast. And we switched it up. I told him at that point, at this point, we're not going to see any ghosts. We're just, so let's just like have fun with it. And it was an awesome place to visit for people who haven't gone there, whether you believe in ghosts or not. If you believe in ghosts, go there if you can for a fun little ghost hunt. If you don't, it's still an interesting as hell building. Brad actually had told me, because Brad lives in Louisville, that he had been there decades ago before it was an attraction, and it might actually be in one of the stories that I narrated something about that he was there and there was all this trash and stuff inside it, and so he got to visit it when it was just him and his friend breaking into it, when it was really an abandoned place. But it's huge. I mean, it's huge, and the death tunnel was pretty cool, and it was creepy, even though none of us were expecting ghosts. It was creepy going into the death tunnel, There's all that fog. But if you haven't watched my video of that, watch it and you'll see some good stuff and visit if you can. But that's around the time that I became a skeptic. And uh, I'd say a lot of that I would have to thank Brad for because we talked a lot about ghosts and the possible stuff, and he got me thinking a lot more than most people had. So now when I look at, and I guarantee you that if we saw a ghost, we wouldn't have screamed and ran away because we were trying to hunt them. But I digress. It was fun, and okay, see, but yeah, I want you guys all to know that I don't look at anybody's story and say, you're a liar. If I can tell a story about a guy dressed in a dog suit being in someone's backyard, I could tell someone's story about a ghost. So let me think earlier. Evil Black Cat was talking about an experience that I had after our cat died, and uh, I'd the very night we didn't have her. It took about 2 weeks before he got her ashes after she was cremated. And one night, the very night we brought her ashes home, I felt a cat walking on my bed. The cats don't get into my room when I'm sleeping. The only cat that really comes into my bedroom is Drusilla. That's only when I let her in. And because I'm a very particular sleeper. And Drew will not sleep in here when I'm sleeping. She'll hang out. She'll sleep on my bed. But only when I'm awake. So there was no cat in my room at this time. No way for them to get in. And I was just lying in bed, and I felt a cat walking on my bed, like between my legs. And I jumped up because I was startled, and there was no cat there. Now, I'm going to go the route of saying it was an interesting experience, but it could have been a partial seizure by me. It could have just been my imagination, my missing it. And after my brother died for a long time, I felt a foot pressing down on my bed sometimes when I was laying down. And my brother used to always do that. If he wanted to wake me up, he would come into my bedroom, put his foot on the foot of my bed, and press down on the mattress. And that would wake me up. And after he passed away, I felt that several times. So, it may be just the way that my mind deals with death because I haven't experienced it much. I don't know, but it was an interesting experience at the time, and it happened with both my brother and with the cat. The only other thing that's died since we've been here was my ferret. My ferret died within a year since we were here. She had a congestive heart failure, and I never felt her do anything. So who knows? She and the other cat, another cat, they're buried in the backyard. Althea's in ashes. My brother is in ashes. But now that I think about it, the ferret's buried in the backyard. The ashes of both my brother and my cat in the house. Jennifer Foster, hello to there too. You caught me live. Yep, you did. Happy to have you here. So, yeah, I don't want to. Paranormal's just a little odd for me now, and like I said, most of it was because of ghost shows, but I don't mind hearing people's stories. Some of mine can be. I mean, most of mine I've had experiences, but having epilepsy, it's very difficult for me to be able to say these are real things that happened. There's only one that I can talk about. One experience that I had that I can't explain, and I can't chalk it up to having a partial seizure or me having a hallucination. And there's a reason for that, and I may have told this story a million times before. But what happened was, this was when I was in high school. Our school had a really small arena, and that's where it was always weird, but the little small arena was where we did our plays at. And one there was my friend Nick was the guy who did all the lighting in the arena, and he was always the last person to leave. And me and him spent talking one night. We stayed up. Uh, Everyone else in the school, with maybe exception of a janitor, had gone, and me and Nick were in the arena. We talked until I don't know. It was way late. It was in late October, so it was dark. It was like 6 o'clock. While we were talking, he told me that we had a theater ghost, and of course I didn't believe him and stuff. And he said that he saw the theater ghost the other night, and he did I want to retrace the steps that he said when he saw it. I'm like, sure, sure. So the arena had these columns, and there were light switches on each of the columns. So we went to the first. There were like 6 different columns. So we turned off all the lights, and as he turned off the lights, he kept telling me, "I turned off this light, and then I walked over here." Now, the lights on the columns are not the only lights in the theater, so there were still other lights. But when he got to the 6th light, he told me right before he clicked the 6th light off, he told me that he saw a man like wearing coveralls standing across the arena for him, and he flicked off the 6th light. When he flicked off that light, I saw this strange beige blobby thing on the ceiling, kind of moving, rise up a little bit, move across the ceiling, and this was across the arena from us. And I kind of closed my eyes and kind of shook my head, and I told him, Nick, you're just making me see stuff now." And he says, "Why did you just see that gray blobby light rise up and crawl across the ceiling?" So that's one I can't explain, because he explained to me what I saw without me saying it first. So both of us saw it, and since both of us saw it, it couldn't have been, a partial seizure, which I don't even know if I had those at the time. But I was 17 years old when that happened, and it was something I can't explain. I don't think there was anything in the arena with the lights that he could have set something like that up. So, have no idea. That it's, out of all the weird experiences I've had, that's the one that's not really particularly scary, but it's one that I just can't explain. Come here, Cat. Have you ever read any of the Toshiden, the Japanese urban legends? I have. I only have the first volume. I've read Japanese urban legends. I don't know if I've read that specifically, but I love that sort of stuff. I always feel the Japanese have the most interesting, scary stories, urban legends, and stuff. But yeah, that would be fun. I've done some Japanese stories. I've always enjoyed doing those because that gives me a chance to do some translation work, and I do enjoy that. If I was doing something other than this, that's the kind of stuff I like to do. I like to translate things. So anyhow, if anyone else has paranormal experiences, I haven't been able to. Keep up with all the chat while I'm talking here, but I see some people shared some stuff. I'll go back and look at it. Oh, have I ever been in love? A few times. A few times. It almost always ended badly. But yeah. I've had uh, first love in high school. There's only one person. I got into a relationship right out of high school, which I was in for a few years. And I've been a couple other relationships. I'd say if I've been in love, I've probably been in love about 4 or 5 times. But a lot of times it doesn't last really great for me because I'm a very solitary person. and it's, well, I mean, it didn't mean that it ended. It didn't mean that it ended because I wanted it to end. Um, I was involved with somebody who was hit by a semi truck and was in a coma for a long time. The family kept me away, so that's how that ended. It wasn't something I wanted to end. It destroyed me for like years. I, I, I mean, the depression that I was in probably easily lasted 2 or 3 years afterwards before I was finally able to like come to terms and move past it. Do I know about the suicide forest? Yes, Akigahara. I actually have a story. A story about it on my channel. It's a story about some. It doesn't. I had removed the story for a short period of time because after the whole thing happened with Logan Paul, when he was when he supposedly showed a body in the forest, uh, I had removed my story for a while, but I put it back up because it's not anybody in the forest. It's just a guy who took a walk through the forest and was talking about the atmosphere of it. How he said that it was like so quiet because there's the ground is from lava. I forget what you call that, solidified lava. But it's all around and it absorbs sound. So he was talking about as he went through the forest, it was so unearthly quiet. Oh no! Don't worry about it. No! Don't worry about it. I'm not sad. I'm completely over that. There's absolutely no way in the world I could feel anything at all for my ex because my ex is not a very good person nowadays. So it's more or less like it was heartbreaking when it happened, but it's not somebody I could get along with right now at all. So that's a happy ending in a way. But yeah, the episode's okay. But yeah, the story was basically just that, and I don't know. I mean, I gotta admit that if I went there, and I would love to go there. Not just there. I mean, I would love to go all around Japan. LP. Did I miss something? So I'm not sure what I missed something there here. But anyhow, someone will tell me I'm not really sure. But to I'd love to just go lots of places in Japan. I've been really obsessed with it for quite a while now. I mean, that was my minor in high school. Not high school, in college. Yeah, I had a minor in high school. My minor in college was Japanese. Oh, Logan Paul. Okay, sorry. I had to mention it just because that was the reason I took the story down. Uh, I'm barely aware of his existence. It's just not the kind of thing that I don't I don't enjoy just that sort of content. So there's so much that goes on like YouTube that I'm completely and utterly oblivious to. So when I hear about some people being popular and what they do, I really don't know. I really stay around us horror story guys the most. I I can't, but that dude annoys me. I I don't understand the appeal of channels like that. So that's kind of why I don't comment a lot on it or say things. But yeah, I don't really get it. I watch all the other horror narrators. I watch some skeptic shows. I was always a big fan of Captain Disillusion for a long time his videos have not really been that great lately. I do enjoy things like internet comment etiquette. I find that channel quite amusing. But yeah, there'll be my sister. My sister will mention uh, YouTube channels and that are really popular, and I'll be completely oblivious to what she's talking about. I'll just be like, huh, okay, I'll just listen to you. So that's just me, but I'm very happy with what I have, and the people I talk to, and the other channels I listen to. Mentioned earlier, I've been listening to Creepy Fox a lot. He's probably the channel that most reminds me of me. He tries to get all the original channels too, and I like that. So, oh, not original channels, original stories. So I'm pretty good at being able to know when stories are being repeated. And other than me, I think he might be the one who tells the most original true stories. But he's enjoyable if you guys don't listen to him. Uh, but I wanted to have him participate in my narrator death video, but he has too much stuff going on. I think that means we're getting old. Can't understand the things kids are into these days. Yeah, that might be correct. That might be correct. Some crimes are real horror stories. True. Uh, you know, if you guys listen to other narrators, I would be interested. You guys in the chat, tell me what other narrators you listen to. That would be really interesting. Yeah, in the chat, tell me who your other favorites are. People that you might like listen to religiously. Gosh, when I first started doing this, probably for a few months before I started my first video, it was all I did. I would sleep during the day, I'd wake up at night, I kind of isolate myself. It was a joke actually when I first started doing this because I set up my bedroom closet because I can keep the closet dark. So I set everything up in the closet and I would just watch um, other channels like all night, try to scare myself as much as I could, and every now and then it'd work. Otis Jerry was one of the very first that I had heard. He had done a narration for what was it called? Oh, I forget the channel. Um, something Tales for Dark Nights. What's the first word I'm looking for? Creepy Tales from Dark Nights, something like that. He had done a narration for them, and so I listened to him. His stories are pretty good. Some have stopped uploading. Yep, that is true. A lot of people kind of just fall off the end too. Corpse Husband, yeah. My sister had mentioned that he's kind of really gotten really big lately. I used to talk to him occasionally, but not much. Blue Spooky. Blue Spooky and me got the we sort of started out together. In the beginning, it was me, Blue Spooky, and Joey's Nightmares were sort of like a trio in a way. We would do some compilations with each other, and we would do our best to promote each other's sites. So then Blue Spooky just almost seemingly overnight just took off. So that was pretty cool. Very happy for him with that. Hell Freezer, Mort being scared. Let's read. Otis Jerry, Chilling Tales for Dark Nights. That's it. That's it. I don't know why I couldn't get that. I still listen to them every now and then too. Totally good. Blue Spooky, yeah. It's too bad I haven't talked to him in a very long time. Brad, I haven't really listened to any in a long time. I used to listen to Hell Freezer and Blue Spooky. Yep, the Blue Spooky coming up quite a bit here, which isn't surprising. He was every now and then. Oh, I love being scared. You, Mortis, good kid. Yeah, every now and then I feel really, really super duper proud of a channel that I find and I knew when they were really small, and then to see them like take off. I mean, Being Scared and Mortis Media are the two obvious ones. Uh, they I knew them when they were just starting out, and it was just like with Mortis, I'm like, oh god, this guy's gonna be huge, and thought Being Scared would too. I mean, he Being Scared found his niche, and I know that he had been mentioned on a lot of people's other videos of the top best horror narrators and stuff. So Mr. Nightmare was my first love. I remember listening to Mr. Nightmare a lot at the beginning too. Um, Lazy Masquerade, Be Busta, yep. Always listened to Uncle Josh's True Scary Stories. I've listened to some of that. Unit 522, yeah, Unit's a nice guy. He helped me out a lot too. He let me do some acting on his channel. Uh, I didn't really think my acting was that good, but he's always been good to help out and stuff. Southern Cannibal is pretty good too. Yes, he's just a nice guy. Also, like talking to him. There's a little thing he does that irks me a little though. Well, I'm curious what that is. But yeah, he Horror Studio 1. I remember that. But one of them. But see, for me listening to so many people, that's why I decided to do it, because I would sit down, I would listen to B Busta's new video, and I'd be like, okay, that's pretty great. Then I would go and I'd listen to Lazy Masquerade's new video, and I'd be like, huh, two of those stories were the ones I just listened to on B Busta's, and okay, that's fine, that's fine. No, I'll find someone new. Okay, like this guy's kind of new. I haven't listened to his channel before, so I'll listen to his. Oh wait, he's telling some of those stories too. Hi, Saibi. I hope Saibi. Hope you're doing all right. Oh, Swamp Dweller. Yeah, Swamp Dweller is always so nice to me. He's a really nice guy. He he's been at some of my other live streams, and he's always like encouraged me and told me. Well, he called me his favorite narrator once. I think he was just trying to be nice, but I appreciated it. I'm pretty sure I'm not, but it was a nice ego boost. Because it'll be like when they point out the flaws and you never notice it again. But yeah, Swamp Dweller is a nice guy. I remember when I first got to know him, I was invited on a live stream, and it was with a couple guys, Swamp Dweller, a guy named Hitchhiker, a couple other people I can't quite remember, but we were doing a live stream, and they started talking about politics, and I didn't want to get into that, so I just, as people know, I don't get into that. And so I sat there for like an hour not saying anything because they were talking about the 2016 election, and I just had nothing to say. So I just kind of sat there twiddling my thumbs, and waited for them to be done. But for quite a while, I was talking with them a lot. But the one I talked to the most still is Swamp Dweller, and he's a really, really nice guy. Oh, thanks, Brad. Mr. Nightmare is the second best next to me. Well, I don't know about that, but I appreciate it very much. Steven Jonas, hello back. Hello, King Wolf. I like that name. I like Darkness Prevails, Funerals, and the Grim Reader, and Chills. Yeah, I like all those. Darkness Prevails I enjoy quite a bit. But yeah, I think my experiences in the beginning, with live streams, was kind of what got me away from doing them for a while, because the first ones were just very uncomfortable for me, and I didn't feel like I really had anything to contribute. What was the other channel that you said was a lot like yours, Fox something? Well, the creepy Fox. And what I mean by like mine is that he reads original stories, not from Reddit, and I don't hear his stories in other channels. So yes, the creepy Fox. That Let's Read feller is pretty good. Yeah, he is. He was really nice to do a video for me back when I was a tiny channel, and he wasn't huge, but he was doing pretty good at the time. And we did like a really really good scary stories about brothers. I think it was wonderful. And but yeah, and he's a very very nice guy as well, so that's good. His ads are weird. His streams are uncomfortable. I don't think I've ever heard Let's Read do a stream, but I don't listen to a lot of streams, so it. I've listened to some streams for a couple of skeptic channels. There's a one guy who's very very who I think all of his videos are about flat earthers, and he does live streams about it all the time. But there's only so much of that sort of stuff I can take for a while before it just drives me crazy. And I used to say some stuff about flat earthers years ago, but now it's just I grew old. I grew kind of just tired of the concept, tired of talking about it, and so I don't really enjoy having to hear about it all the time. So I kind of stopped listening to those. The Grim Reader. I don't. Yeah, let me think about that because I should. I th- what's getting to me about that is I should know exactly what happened, but it's kind of escaping me at the moment. But if I remember, I'll let you know. As I remember I, I remember having a discussion about it, about why, because we did a collaboration together, and this was really really early in my time period, but I'm going to share that right here. And that is the video that I did with the Grim Reader. And we had talked about why he stopped. But gosh, I just can't remember it. I'm sorry. Yeah, the part about the fires, I do remember something about that. And like I said, when something happens to you majorly, it's sometimes like on like a YouTube channel, it's hard to recover because, like I told you before, we were talking in the early part of the stream before things went down about Elfin Lycota. He was on a roll. I mean, he was getting offers to do collaborations from some big channels. He knew Nightmare. Mr. Nightmare was even recommending him on his recommended list, and he was doing great. But then that person came in, and someone hacked into his account, deleted all of his videos. So when that happens, you don't just lose the video, you lose all the likes, you lose all the views. So his channel basically had to reset itself, and he just couldn't take that. I mean that was, and it's understandable. When all your work is destroyed and it feels like you're starting all over again, that's just really a hard thing to overcome. So with the Grim Reader, with the fires and everything affecting his channel, that makes perfect sense why he might at that point just stop. Joey's Nightmares, he slowed down because he wasn't making as much ad revenue to support himself. So he got a regular 9 to 5 job, I believe, and once he did that, it was hard to keep up with doing videos very often. I do see him do a new video every now and then, which is always good to see because, I said, for a while when we first started out, me, Joey's Nightmares, and Blue Spooky were always working together to help each other. So it was sad to see that his channel slowed down, but it's great to see when he has a video out. So, and I believe the Phantom Librarian quit because of something going on with a disability. That he felt that or something was going on that he was making ad revenue, but it was interfering with. I think I'm thinking of the right person. If I'm not, I apologize. But I think it had something to do with that, which things are so different than they used to be. Yeah, Miss Old Joey, he was a good guy. He's a very, very, very nice guy. One of the nicest people I've known, or one of the nicest narrators I've been. And I'm friends with some pretty nice people. I get a. Do I have a Discord? I do have a Discord. It's not exceptionally active, but I do have one. Maybe Evil Black Cat will be nice enough to share the link for it. I don't have it open right now to get that. But I do have a Discord, and I will try I at least look at it whenever, and I do try to post the videos in it. There's a couple people who chat here and there. It's not like rocking or anything, but it could be eventually. See, there she goes. I am correct, Jay. Yes, occasionally I am. Once or twice. I allow myself to be correct once or twice a year. You know, it's funny watching these, whenever I do these live streams, I keep the live stream up on my screen, and I mute it, but I have the closed captionings playing. So I watch the closed captionings, and I see how it really makes my words sound kind of weird. Not like rockin'? Oh, okay. Sorry. Yes. But you know, it's. I was trying to find a good description, and maybe I found a dorky one, but that's me. I'm a dork. But yeah. Anyhow, I am going to find another story because I was interested in doing that. EBC is on it. Yeah, she can be every now and then. That's why we keep her around. Now, let me see here. I'm going to just flip through here. Now, this is... What I did was... I have this... My Yahoo account. When I first started doing stories, I would email them to myself because I would type them. I had a netbook. Got a netbook. I had a netbook, and I still have it actually, that I would write everything on the netbook, then I'd email it to myself so I could make the videos on my regular laptop. So I would go through my old Yahoo accounts, and I found some old stories that I don't remember, but they're kind of interesting because I don't remember them, and I'll read a couple of them. This one is from a video I called 3 True Scary Stories That Take Place in the Fall. This came out a long time ago. This one's called The Backyard. My best friend growing up was a guy named Going Up. Wow, there is an obvious typo right away. Let's start over again. My best friend growing up was a guy named Joey. We were friends as long as I could remember, starting back when we first were around 8 years old, and we started the age-old ritual of having sleepovers. We had a sleepover at least once a month, and the strange thing was, though, that all the sleepovers were always at my house. I never really thought about it until I was around 11 years old. We were talking about having a sleepover on Halloween, which was only a few weeks away. Immediately, Joey began asking what my mom would be making for Halloween dinner. It was then that I finally brought it up to Joey. I asked him why we never had the sleepovers at his place. Right away, he seemed like he didn't really want to talk about sleepovers anymore. He changed the subject. I didn't want to press it at the time, so I just let it go. A couple days after this, after school, Joey and I were walking together. I remember this very vividly because it was one of those days when the leaves were constantly falling from the trees, almost like it was raining leaves. Joey told me he was sorry that he hadn't answered my question the other day. He told me that he never wanted anyone to come over to his house overnight because he believed that his shed was haunted. I was a bit confused. I had heard of haunted houses. I had heard of schools and theaters being haunted, but I had never heard anyone saying that they had a haunted shed. I wondered that even if his shed had been haunted, why is it that this would be what was... Okay, try that again. Why is it that this would keep him from wanting to have a sleepover at his place? He told me that the only time he had seen the ghost was when his older brother had sleepovers, so he thought it would happen if anyone stayed over. Still, he told me he wanted to do the Halloween sleepover at my place, but if I wanted to stay over during the current weekend, he would be okay with that. So that Friday, instead of going home, I walked with Joey over to his house. Although I hadn't ever slept there before, I had hung out with him there several times. We had a good and fun evening. I didn't want to piss him off, but I was really super curious about the ghost. So after we were alone and watching some movies, I asked Joey about the ghost. He immediately didn't seem like he was having a good time anymore. "It's in the shed," Joey said. "If you want to watch the shed from my bedroom window, you can." I sort of did, and I sort of didn't. But I could tell talking about it was really upsetting my best friend, so I dropped it. We just went back to enjoying ourselves. When we went to sleep in Joey's room, he fell asleep in the bed pretty quickly. I didn't, though. I was hanging out in my sleeping bag, I think I meant. I was hanging out in my sleeping bag. I couldn't get the ghost out of my head. I didn't necessarily believe in ghosts myself. I thought that whatever Joey had been seeing, there must be an explanation for it. Anyway, when I was sure he was asleep, I went and looked out the window. There was a light from the back of the house that shone on the backyard, right towards the shed. I sat there for about 10 minutes, wondering what it was that my friend Joey had seen before. If it was the ghost, and if the ghost only appeared on sleepover nights, it made sense to me that it was probably just Joey's brother trying to scare him. I sat there for another 10 minutes before I decided to give up and go back to bed. But then, I saw something in the backyard. It was a humanoid-like figure, wearing nothing but a pair of shorts, crawling from the backyard on his hands and knees. It moved very slowly, almost deliberately with weird jerky movements. It made its way over to the shed. It pried the doors open and slipped inside. I was absolutely freaked out. I went over to the sleeping bag, crawled in, and pulled the sleeping bag over my head. It took me forever to fall asleep, and when it did, it wasn't very good sleep. The next morning I told Joey about what I had seen. He confirmed that this was what he had seen the previous times. Now, an 11-year-old is probably a lot more likely than an adult to believe that he actually saw a ghost. I was freaked out, but as I mentioned before, this only seemed to happen on sleepover nights, and Joey had an older brother. Looking back, I wouldn't be surprised if it was some sort of trick, or maybe it was a ghost. Who knows? But it was pretty scary. See, that's a story I have absolutely no memory of ever narrating, but there it is. I see the chat's been going on good while I'm reading. Let's see, friend librarian walking the view. Memes on the channel, Sunflower. 2022 is a hard year to rock for anyone. I guess that's true. Julio Cantu, sorry I'm late. How are you doing, KC? How was your Thanksgiving? My Thanksgiving was alright. Me and Evil Black Cat, we went over to our parents' house. The dinner was nice. We had Cornish game hens. I can't really say that I particularly enjoyed them. They were kind of, I mean, they're kind of gamey, I guess. But I mean, I guess that's in their name, so maybe I should have expected it. But yeah, the Cornish game hens were a little odd for me. But we had those, but we had a lot of I had a lot of that green bean casserole stuff. I like that. Um, oh hey Kevin, love the story. Thanks. I don't remember that story at all. The ghost is coming from inside the shed. Movie trope. Yeah, I noticed that. Not only the shed, but the jerky movements too. That's sort of a J horror sort of thing, or how I think it's been ever since The Ring. Ghosts have had jerkier movements, so another trope there. I don't even remember anything about that story. It's kind of funny. Yeah, well, fortunately, we actually do have a turkey too. We our our mom bought us a turkey also, so yeah, they have them. I guess they've been doing the game hens for a while, but it's again too gamey, and it's the texture just did not work for me. But I didn't say that. And my mom doesn't listen to my mom and my stepdad don't watch my videos, so they're not gonna watch them and get mad at me or anything. Sandwich Man. Oh, 20 more people joined since I last checked. Hello, hello, Sandwich Man. Sorry, I pronounced your name wrong. But yeah, I don't remember that story at all. But it did have tropes in it. I have to agree with that. But it was an interesting little story. Probably not something I would have read more recently. And let me see if I can find something else, because now I'm enjoying doing that. I know that there were other two ocean stories. Ooh. I might want to read one of these, because I think this might be one of the more fun stories that I've ever had. I've had that hospital stories. Let me read this abandoned building story. Abandoned hospital. This is kind of an old story. It happened back in the late 1970s, as will be revealed by a few things that come up in the story. But I just thought I should mention that no one wonders why I didn't have a cell phone or something like that. It's because it was in the 1970s. Back then, the closest thing most people had to a cell phone was on the wall of a building, and you had to feed quarters into it. When I was 16, I really didn't have a lot of friends. I spent a lot of time walking around town that surrounded the area. There was an old train yard that I used to like to explore. It was especially nice in the fall, when it'd be cool outside. I'd throw my jacket on and go out exploring. It was the fall of 1978 that I'd gotten up the courage to explore an old abandoned hospital that was on the outskirts of town. It wasn't a sanitarium or anything like that, at least not to my knowledge. It was just an old hospital that I was told was closed down in the 1960s sometime. It was fenced and gated off and had plenty of no trespassing signs on it, but it wasn't really a challenge to get into. The only thing that was a challenge was gathering up the courage to go into it. I had no idea what the police would have done if they caught me. I finally convinced myself to do it when I told myself that it made no sense that the police would be hanging around an old hospital anyway. So I got over the gate easily and snuck in. The first time, I actually did not go into the hospital itself. I just explored the grounds. Although I had overcome my nerves regarding getting into the property, I hadn't overcome them in regards to breaking into the building itself. So I simply explored the grounds. There was a big old fountain in front of the hospital. It was covered in moss and other green gunk. I threw some rocks into it. Making my way around to the back, I found an old park area. There were things like a slide and a swing set. I tried swinging on one of the swings and fell and hurt my ass. After poking around a little bit more, I left. About a week later, I came back to the hospital and decided I was going to try and find a way in. It was boarded up pretty tight, and many of the windows had bars on them. I wasn't able to break in, so I left. The following week, I came back with tools. I was determined to get into the hospital somehow. I was able, after much effort and a few cuts on my hands, to pry off some of the bars, covering one of the old windows. I then used a hammer to break the window and was able to slide in. Being inside the hospital was a very creepy experience. It was, of course, very dark in many places, and I had to carry around a flashlight with me. The higher floors, which I visited as well, were not as dark, though. It was a pretty well-built building because the floors and stairs were all solid, and I was able to find my way around it quite easily. I explored a lot of the room, and to my surprise, many of them did have old and really rusted and worn-out equipment in it. I mean, nothing like needles or anything, but there were some old wheelchairs and gurneys and things. I was pretty excited at one point, and I went ahead and tried to ride a wheelchair down a wheelchair ramp. Well, it didn't work, and the wheel caught, and I was propelled out of the wheelchair and onto the floor of the ramp, scuffing myself up pretty bad. It was while I was lying on the ramp that I could have sworn I heard someone laughing. It immediately sent a chill down my spine, and although I couldn't be sure, I figured it was better just to get out of that place as quickly as possible. I quickly walked back to the room that had the window I had broken, feeling that I was being watched and followed the entire time. I made it out, constantly looking around me to see if anyone was following me. I almost expected someone to grab my leg while I was going through the window, but nothing happened. I made it off the grounds and swore to myself I would not go back to the hospital. Well, that promise didn't last very long. I came back to the hospital about 6 weeks later. My experience had enough to scare me into not coming back for a while, but not permanently. I convinced myself that I had imagined the laughing, and I psyched myself out. I had been around most of the hospital that day and hadn't seen any indication that anyone else had been there. Also, there was no way I noticed anyone could have gotten into the building, as it had taken me forever to get in myself. I got back in through my regular window and began exploring other parts of the building. I had gotten completely over my apprehension by that point, and it was when I walked into what I assumed to be an operating room, because there was an operating table in it, that I got the chill of my life. Plastered all over the walls were hundreds of Polaroid pictures. The vast majority were just of people I didn't know. But on the wall opposite of me, there were at least 20 that were of me. I saw pictures of me out by the fountain. I saw a picture of me on my ass when I fell off the swing. I saw a picture of me on the ramp when I had fallen off the wheelchair. The pictures were not that great, obviously taken without flashes, but I could make out that they were definitely of me. I had never before nor since been as freaked out as I was. Well, I'll just admit it. I wasn't freaked out, I was scared shitless. I turned, surveyed the hallway, and made my way back to the entrance window. Every step was a new nightmare. Walking by every open door, I expected someone to grab me and pull me in. Every sound caused me to jump out of my skin, and by the time I made it to the exit, I can admit I was nearly in tears of the pure terror I was experiencing. Getting out through the window was terrible, though. I had to keep looking around me, but I made it out and over the fence. And here's the scariest part. I made it over the fence, and looking back at the hospital, I saw a person standing by the fountain, looking at me. He had a Polaroid camera, and he snapped a picture of me. Did I tell my parents? No. Did I call the police? What good would it have done? I was trespassing as far as I know. The guy might have owned the place or had been a groundskeeper or something. I would have to admit that both of my parents and the police had broken the law. My only solace was there was no way this man could have known who I was or where I lived. Okay. Now, well, I got back just in time to say bye to Elk. Okay, goodbye. Good night for being. Thanks for being here. I gotta take myself a bit of a drink of some Kool-Aid here. I'm a little dry. Hey, Lisa, how are you doing? Now, that would be one of the stories that I might, if I would, I received that story in 2016. Reading it, getting it now, I may have thought, I don't know. Lone Wolf, hey KOC, how's everything? Everything's great, and I hope it is there for you too. But nowadays, I might be a little more skeptical. But I guess one of the reasons I kind of gave that story the benefit of the doubt was, the kid's right. It might have just been the caretaker. It might have been, a caretaker who was assigned to the hospital and was taking pictures of trespassers. I mean, that would make sense in a way. So that might have been why I gave it the benefit of the doubt at the time. Nowadays, getting that story, I'd probably be like, I'm not so sure. I'll go ahead and read it anyways, but I'm not really sure if that happened or not. But it could have. It could have. I mean, it wasn't like the boogeyman jumped out and grabbed him or something. That might be a little more scary to believe. But the Christina, 2 weeks ago, I was hanging out at my buddy's apartment and felt uneasy. I decided after a while that I should take a walk and get some fresh air. Figured I would walk to the 7-Eleven as it wasn't far at all. So after walking a bit, I saw something in my peripheral. I turned my head across the road and saw what I thought was a huge male. He was 8 feet tall, no joke, dressed in all black with a black hood. I knew in my spirit that this thing, whatever it was, had evil intentions. I felt sheer terror and fear at first. I thought I was being followed, and this thing wanted to abduct me, so I decided I was going to watch it to see what exactly it was going to do. Well, I watched it for about 10 seconds when I literally saw it stop in front of a tree and then disappeared out of thin air. At first I didn't believe my very eyes, so I moved closer to the tree, thinking it may be hiding behind the tree. However, it hadn't gone behind it. It truly disappeared. I ran and started praying. Sorry, I saw you reading, typing out your story, so I had to read it. What a boring job that guy had. Well, if you're talking about the guy in the hospital, maybe that's why. Maybe that's why he started taking pictures of people. It was just he had nothing else to do at the time. I can imagine being bored and hanging out in the hospital, an abandoned hospital, and being so bored you'd start taking pictures of whatever. That's a good point. I do kind of like this story. I don't remember it, and that's one of the reasons why, going through some of these old stories, I find it to be kind of neat to being remembering things that I have absolutely no memory of. I'm kind of learning them again. 'Cause, yep, I've been doing this for quite a while. Now, originally, when I got this out, I was going to read this story right here, and I started reading other things and kind of got away from it. But when I first told you guys I was going to read a story, this was the story that I was going to read, I think it was, and I got completely sidetracked. And always found this one to be very, very creepy. And I'll tell you why, too, but we'll read the story first. So I'll let you guys know what I'll do from now on, because it's getting a little bit late, so We've been here for almost 2.5 hours, and my mouth are getting a little bit dry, so I might have to take a break. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna read this old story to you. And since you all have stuck around and kept me company tonight and hung out with me tonight, I'm going to read you a story off my next video, which I hope to have out sometime tomorrow. So, 2 more stories, and then I'll probably have to go for the night. But before I do that, thanks for everyone coming through. It's been nice seeing everybody. I'll talk more between the story and after the last one, but just to let you guys know what's happening. Waiting for a jump. My dad was an asshole. That's really the nicest thing I can say about the jerk. He was always drunk. When he got drunk, he became 10 times the asshole he was beforehand. It was worse when my mom left, and we remained with this man who was just completely unfit for being a father. Now, while it might seem that I was exaggerating, I'm really not. He had used us kids to try to make our mother miserable, which of course only made us miserable as well. And I understand that you may find this story completely implausible, but trust me that it really happened. We grew up in the city. Us kids were used to that. Our father, however, had this obsession with the country. He wanted to move out to the country to be as far away from people as everyone else. He had his dreams about what he wanted to do out in the country, but they were just things he talked about when he was drunk and make believing that he had the motivation to do anything other than lift up a bottle. I was 12 when he eventually moved us out to the country. It was a very rural area in Ohio that was no less than a 45-minute drive to the nearest town. It sucked because it made even the simplest things hard. My brother and I had to wake up at 4 in the morning to walk nearly 2 miles to the nearest school bus stop and then wait for the damn bus ride, which was over an hour to get to school. To demonstrate what an asshole my dad was, the bus driver actually was required to drive up the road to our house. But being that our house was the only one on our road that he had to stop at, my dad told him we could just walk to the main road every morning instead. So as usual for this jerk, he made our lives hard in order to get others have their lives easy. Well, I'm sorry. I don't want to get off on too much of a dad-hating rant. It will get way off the point. But I want to tell you about the freakiest thing that ever happened to me when we lived out there. My dad and brother were restoring an old Mustang. After they got it running, my dad took it out for a ride. He went further down the gravel road. God, you always know I have a problem with that word. He went further down the gravel rural route that we lived on. We were at the top of a hill, and the road went up and down many hills, but there were no houses for miles. In fact, when we drove further out that way, it would take about 30 minutes of driving to find anything. It was about as rural as you can get. Well, when my dad took it out for a test drive, he was gone for a long time. Many hours afterwards, he came back to the front door and appeared winded. Apparently, the battery on the car had died far from the house, and he had to walk his way back to the house. He, of course, immediately grabbed a beer and sat down on his lazy butt and told me to go grab the jumper cables. When I did, he told me to take the jumper cables to the car and wait for someone to come by and ask for a jump. When I protested, he told me that he had been out there long enough, and I had to do it because he told me to. Now, you're probably thinking, why would he send a 13-year-old? I know I said 12 earlier, but I had a birthday when we were there. To do that, well, he insisted when we moved out there that I had to learn how to drive, and now it was being put to the test. Anyways, I took the cables and went out to the car. It was already dusk by the time I got there, and I knew it would be getting cold, so I got in the car. It didn't take very long for it to get dark, and by the time it was dark, no car had come by, and I didn't expect it to. Well, I can't tell you how long I stayed out there in the dark in that car. I was at a complete loss as to what to do. I could hope that a car would eventually come by, but I doubted it would. I neither could nor would I wanted to go back into the dark, so all I could do was sit there by myself. After a while, I thought I saw something up on the hill. It was just a flicker of light. But after, sorry about that. I lost my place. I apologize. I'm breaking the tension. After a while, I thought I saw something up on the hill. It was just a flicker of light, and I dismissed it at first. It may have been lightning bugs. But after a short period of time, I saw it getting much closer. I began to get slightly concerned. When I finally saw the light coming closer, and I knew it was another person, I swore under my breath, or that I would have welcomed a car to give me a jump. Someone walking around in the woods in the middle of the night was not someone I wanted to be anywhere near. As a precaution, I locked the doors of the car, and then sort of lowered myself down in the seat. I remained there in my car for a while, just trying to be quiet and unnoticed. At least about 30 minutes had passed since last time I had seen one of the lights, and I thought I was in the clear. I began wondering what I was going to do next when I heard it. I heard a tapping noise. I looked over the passenger door window where it was coming from. At first I saw nothing, but then I saw two fingers slowly rise into view, and they slowly tapped on the window before retreating again. Ah, hell, I thought. Whoever it was, I decided they wanted to mess with me. Well, I waited for a while, looking at the passenger window for a while, wondering what is going to happen. After a while, I saw the two fingers reemerge, and they looked like they were about to tap on the window, but they stopped. And I heard the tapping behind me. Well, I jumped out of my skin since my back was facing that door, and I saw secondhand. Apparently, the people who were out there were extremely amused because I heard some laughing. I kept an eye on both windows as well as possible before the hands began tapping simultaneously on the windows. Completely freaked out, I lowered myself in the seat and tried to reach around on the floor to grab something I could use as a weapon. Feeling around, my hand closed over a tire iron, and I felt a rush of relief. However, it didn't last long. The two pairs of hands were hitting the two sides of the windows of the car. I saw a figure stand up in the front of the car. There was a third person. Not knowing what else to do, I thought of the only thing I could think of. I tried flashing the lights on the guy in front of me, and they came on. Completely shocked, I turned the key in the ignition, and the damn car started up perfectly. I didn't ask questions, I just put the car in drive and hit the gas. I hit the guy in front of me, who wasn't able to get out of the way in time. But it wasn't a hard hit, since he was right in front of the car. Not that I cared, since they were obviously threatening me. I floored it, and I didn't stop until I got home. Remember when I told you my dad was an asshole? When I got home, he was laughing his ass off, because it had taken me so long to figure out that the car was never dead to begin with. It was an idiotic joke. When I told him what happened, however, he swore up and down that he had nothing to do with the other people. I don't know. I think a man who would send his son out on such a bad practical joke to begin with doesn't get the benefit of the doubt. Now, here's the thing about that. Is I remember that story, but I didn't remember the end of it with the dad and the tricking and the practical joke with the car. What a jerk! But yeah, that's an interesting little story there. Um, I feel like a lot of stories you read have the phrase gravel road in them multiple times. That could be probably because many are country stories. Just to answer that, sometimes I do, I change a lot of things. I try to make it easier for me to say. There are words I do have problems with. I've had rock roads, stone roads. It's easier to say gravel, so I do that too. But I don't know, that was a weird story. A weird story. I forgot the ending of it, but wow, that was a bad practical joke for that dad to play. Come here, cat. Love you, KOC. Kat, I had all these things I wanted to ask you, and well, now my mind is completely blank. This is a scary, and I was gonna mention before you read it, one of my favorites. Uh, well, if you can't remember it beforehand, just go ahead and you can always ask me some other time. Send me an email or something. If you can't remember it, you know me. And I'm gonna try to do these more regularly, like I said. I have fun kind of reading some of these old stories again. Uh, that story was always something because that story was very similar. But yeah, it's he has the hardest time saying rural. Yeah, if you noticed that it's been in a couple of the stories that I've read tonight, and it's always a story I mess up on. I don't know why, but I just have real problem with that word. But the so yeah, it's most of what happens in the stories. I try to put it into my voice. Sometimes it's difficult to read somebody else's voice, and a lot of times the stories that I get are written with really bad grammar, and I can't really read that, so I have to edit and fix up the sentences so they flow better, so I can read them, so they're grammatically correct as possible. Because I try to read that way, and there are other words I have problems with. But yeah, I don't change anything that happens in the stories when I edit them. I just make them easier for me to read. But all the facts that happen in the story, yeah. Well, I used to have a speech impediment. You know, I used to talk a little bit like Elmer Fudd when I was a kid. They had to send me to speech class for when I was in the second grade, I think. If ever son is your name and right, you know that would be cruel. You're mean. She's mean. I just yelled at her for the Rory thing. Although I seem to say that perfectly. Yeah, your voice is superb. Thank you. I'm surprised I'm getting through it because I've been talking for a while, so my mouth is kind of dry, even with the Kool-Aid. This is why I'm probably gonna have to take a break here after I read one more story. I have ADHD, and it makes me just like hyper focus on things that are said often. Sometimes I notice that a lot. Yeah, I actually had a person. This was a few months ago. Leave a message in one of my videos that he thought it was weird that there were a lot of similar words and repetitive words in different stories that I have done, and he thought that I was just writing them all myself, and I was like, okay. I tell you, if I had the creativity to write, I've got about 1,200 stories on this channel. Uh, if I had the creativity to write that many different stories, ooh, I am a lazy writer. I'm a lazy writer. I will get ideas and just never do anything with me. If I had the creativity to write that much stories on my own, I couldn't even imagine what I could probably do. You know, I told him, "Thank you. I'm glad you think that." But the reason you have all those repetitive words and stuff is because I do edit the stories. You know, I edit the stories so they're easier for me to read. But there's no way in hell that I would ever be able to do that. You know how many I don't. You know how many stories I've probably written in my entire life and actually finished? Maybe about 10. Um, but oh, my Kool-Aid isn't sugar. My Kool-Aid doesn't have sugar in it. It has NutraSweet. Midnight Story Productions. I write my own. It's a full-time job. Brutal. Oh no, I can understand that. I can understand it definitely. And good for you that you were able to do that. Because then you have to keep on coming up with you got to keep on coming up with your own stories, but writing them all and everything and keeping up with it. I can only imagine that must be quite the chore. But I am looking you up right now. Huh. You're not coming up now, but I'll take a listen to your. I'll take a watch from your stories right after I'm done with this. But what I. Hey, OKC, it's KOC. It's been a while. Glad to see you're live. Don't do that. Don't do that. I love that. But nice to see you back then, too. had to stop watching for a while because listening to these kinds of stories was starting to bring unwanted attention my way, if you know what I mean. I'm not sure I do. Well, I think I have an idea. Now I do a lot of writing, but it's I'm an academic writer. So I've had papers published in academic journals. There's no way you guys would want to read my academic writing. It's boring. It's very dry, full of statistics, and usually it's about parts of your brain and behavior. So, no one's gonna want to read that. But anyway, we're coming up close to having been here for about 3 hours. So here's what I'm gonna do now. I am going to read you guys a story. Since you've been nice to stick here with me for all this time and talk, you get to have the little preview of the next video. And let me pull it up real quick. This story happened to somebody that I know. So I'm going to go ahead and read that for you guys, and that's going to be how I'm going to end the stream. So, after I'm done reading the story, I'll do the whole Killer Orange Cat thing, and kind of end just like that. But so I'm going to say right now, thank you everybody for showing up tonight. Thank you for sticking around to hear some stories. Thank you for all the nice things. We did get a few super chat donations. Thanks very much to for those things help out so wonderful. Lee. I see people talking, but I wish there would be like a list here that just tells me everybody who's in the room. But I guess that might be kind of hard to do. So I'm going to go ahead and read the story from the next video, and I hope that you guys will like it. And let me pull it up. And so I'll just say before I do this, there's too many people to thank individually. So everyone in there, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And thank you for continuing to support my channel. It means a whole lot to me. And it means a lot to my sister too, because she helps me out with so much stuff here. So, and thank her for moderating and keeping track of the chat. So when I miss stuff, she will Jenny tend to point it out for me. And nice to see you, Patty. You might be late, but at least you're getting time for the last story. Okay, and same with the E's keeps on getting to me. But sunflower wolf. I think I got it there. Thank you, $10 for the donation. The cats will be very happy. We can get them a couple cans of food to go along with the dry food. That'll make them very ecstatic. Thank you very much. We do appreciate that. It helps the cats in the channel, so we love it very much. And Patty, Starfire 3, thank you for the great storytelling. Thank you for seeing this great storytelling. Good night, Brad. I hope you show up more often. I miss seeing you here. You're a good friend, Wolfer McWolferson. Well, send me an email. I keep my email in my videos. If you ever want to read one of my academic papers, I'll send it to you. The stop motion person, $1.99. Thank you very much for that donation. Again, also, see as you guys are donating when I'm about to read the story, and it gives me a chance to thank you all beforehand. I appreciate it very much. I know Evil Black Cat does, and so do our kitty cats. You did it. I did pronounce it right. Okay, good. I hope you'll show up on my next Sunflower Wolf. I hope you will show up in my next one, and I'll be able to pronounce your name more correctly throughout this stream. But thank you again, and thank you and the stop motion person for the donations. Chimera Cat, good night, KC as well. Well, you're not KOC, I am. But good night, and good night, everybody else. And here's the story we get to close with. It's called The Swimming Hole. I wasn't sure how to tell this story at first. It didn't happen to me, but I feel like I should tell it in first person. But I won't. My grandma was born in the 1930s. Thankfully, she is still hanging on today. But when she tells me stories, they come from a world that I could never imagine. So I will try my best to show you what happened. My grandma grew out in the country, and not the country that most people are used to. When someone has a house they buy out in the hills, and they have cable, phones, and electricity, my grandma didn't have any of that. She lived in a shack, and she was one of eventually 12 children. They often did not have food, and they relied on their dad going hunting. So this was the 1930s, and since it is that time period, things were very, very different. This was during the Depression. My grandma was only 5 years old at the time. She had a little brother who was possibly about 2. And although she didn't exactly tell me why, one day they were out at a swimming hole. Her parents were off doing something, and they left my grandma, who was 5 years old, to watch her younger brother. It is always weird when she tells me this story. I cannot fathom having a 5-year-old being responsible for a 2-year-old. But she assures me this was not out of the ordinary for the time and the place that she lived. So while her parents, who would be my great-grandparents, were off doing something, this 5-year-old girl in the middle of nowhere was left to watch a child less than 2 years old, right next to a swimming hole. Well, this is where it gets weird. I know that an 80-year-old memory is probably really flawed, but she swears up and down she saw something that looked like an arm grab her little brother and pull him into the swimming hole. Being 5 years old, my grandma could not swim yet, so she began yelling and screaming, trying to get the attention of her parents, but she didn't know what else to do. She ran over to the swimming hole and tried to grab her little brother, but she was unable to reach him. And the entire time, he was yelling at someone who wasn't there to let go of him. It didn't take too long until the screaming drew the attention of my great-grandparents. They came over and found their son flailing around for his life in the swimming hole. So, my grandma's dad was able to jump into the water. He grabbed his son, and my grandma still swears to this day that when he grabbed the boy and pulled him out of the water, she saw an arm and a hand wrapped around his leg. And when her dad tugged hard enough, the hand let go and sank back under the water. A lot of things could have happened here. It could have been her imagination that she noticed the hand there. It is possible she never saw the arm and her memory added it later. And it's possible, I guess, that there was a ghost in that swimming hole. But here's the thing. It doesn't really matter what it was. My grandma believes she saw what she told us. Whether she did or not, it was still a horrifying image to her. For some reason, either she really saw this, or her memory added it later and it was just a terrifying image in my own head. Try to believe it yourself. Try to think about it. Believe you witnessed something come out of the water and pull your 2-year-old brother into the water and try to drown him. Even if it was imagined, that was so damn scary. And of course, being what they were at the time, her parents actually punished her for letting it happen. They punished a 5-year-old for not properly watching a 2-year-old. I really hope that things have changed, and I know they have, and I'm grateful for that. But whenever my grandma tells me the story, I become quite terrified. And that's the story. So, again, I want to thank everybody for everything. It's been a great night, and I've had a lot of fun. But most importantly, don't forget to make sure to check in your closet and check under your bed, because you never know where a killer orange cat might be hiding.